Hi everyone, welcome to America. If you don't like America, then get off the channel. Hey, today's video, we're going to be talking about the benefits of hiring former law enforcement and even current law enforcement, and what are the warning signs that you should look for. This video is intended for those of you who own and operate your own private security company. So let's talk about the advantages. By hiring former law enforcement, you can actually start advertising that we have a staff of retired or former law enforcement officers that are ready when needed. And believe it or not, there's some clients out there that are, for lack of a better term, that are stupid. They don't realize that somebody who has never been in law enforcement or even in the military, they could do the same job, but maybe better than a law enforcement officer. There's, again, stupid clients out there. Hey, well, I only want ex-cops to protect my property because they're the best. They're the best of the best, and I only want them. So I'll pay you an extra $50 an hour or $40 an hour, but I only want ex-cops, or I want current cops. If you don't have that, then don't even propose any private security services on my property. There are stupid clients that believe that. The truth of the matter is that those who are formerly law enforcement, they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to get involved in situations that would bring liability to them and then their organization. They've been tested before. And those who are currently in law enforcement, this is what really gets to me, is these clients who only want off-duty cops. Because your off-duty cops are the ones that don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to get involved in situations. They don't want to break up the fights, because if they have to take some type of enforcement action or use of force, they have to report it to their agency. And also, if they're injured on duty while employed as a private security officer, workers' compensation laws, the workers' compensation benefits is for a security officer and not a police officer. And the benefits for a police officer, they outweigh the benefits for private security, money-wise, and the types of benefits that you can get. There's so much more of your pay is covered. So in California, for example, if you're injured on duty, I believe that you get about 70% of your salary for a whole year. And I don't know what the specifics are, because I have never been retired. Those of you who are watching this channel, you probably know the formula. I think it's called 4850 or 7050, 6050. Again, I've never filed for retirement before, so I don't know what the name of the formula is. But these are reasons why current law enforcement don't want to get in trouble and former law enforcement. Now, if you're a hiring manager, these are some questions that you have to ask. Is, why did you leave your agency? Now, if they say, well, I just decided to retire, there could be some issues with that. The normal or the regular retirement age for law enforcement in California before 2012, actually a Republican governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, pushed for this revision bill, but in 2012 on or about, the retirement age was pushed from age 50 to, I believe it was 55, and then I think it went to 57. And a lot of the other benefits were cut. We could thank Governor Schwarzenegger at that point at time, and I'll point him out, even though he's a fellow Republican. Before then, the retirement age was 50. So if I get a 30-year-old that claims to be retired, and this person retired, or this person started after 2012, and then they claim to be retired, so that would put them at about 10 years of service, I'm going to start asking some more questions, because you can't retire at age 30 unless, in California, unless it's a medical retirement, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, notice I say the age 50 and then the age 57. around the United States, the retirement age for police officers has been pushed to about age 55. I think Mississippi, their retirement age is like 60. And for federal service, I think as long as you do 20 years of federal law enforcement service, you can retire. And I'm not too sure if it's after age 50, anytime after age 50, or maybe before, but you just need 20 years of service. I'm almost sure that with federal law enforcement service, you can retire with 20 years of service. So you enter at age 22 or 25, you could possibly have somebody that retired at age 46. So if I get my 30-year-old or even my 40-year-old that claims to be retired, I'm going to have to ask some more questions like, hey, okay, you retired? See, you have to be careful because you can't ask questions that revolve or that bring Americans' Disability Act into question. But what I want to find out is this a medical retirement or is this an actual service retirement? Because a service retirement, he or she have to wait until age 50, 55, or even 60, depending on the state. Now, one of the ways I could find out if the retirement was honorable is this. So I would ask, because it's a job-related question, you can't ask, hey, what happened to you? Okay, you got a medical retirement, well, like, what happened? You can't ask these questions. At least you can't ask them at the time of the interview. This is a clear ADA violation. So what I would ask is this. Some of the projects require a concealed weapon permit. Do you have a concealed weapon permit? Somebody that is honorably retired will mention that they have HR 218 or a concealed weapon permit issued from their agency. Now, let me talk about HR 218. This is a federal law that says that if you have 10 years of service, of law enforcement service, whether it be a reserve time or full-time, you are able, the law enforcement agency that you worked at is able to issue you a concealed weapon permit based on HR 218. So you would ask, okay, are you HR 218? So if so, can I see a copy of your concealed weapon permit? The other way is through the agency issue them a retiree ID. That doesn't involve 10 years of service. That person can get a concealed weapon permit by their agency as long as their retirement is not a psychological injury. So in California, it even states in the California Penal Code, if there's a psychological injury, and that's the reason for the retirement, they are not entitled to a concealed weapon permit. Okay, which is pretty sad because all they have to do is apply to the local sheriff's department in California, and maybe there's that 2% chance that they'll issue it. But these are the questions that you should be asking. Again, do not ask ADA issued questions. I also want to ask, I think it's fair game to ask, hey, what happened at your employer? Well, they retired, then they retired. But if they got fired, then I want to make sure that they're giving me an accurate disclosure on that. Because a lot of law enforcement officers that, well, not that I know, but a lot of them that are sketchy, when they get fired, they tell everybody that they retired, which is it's not honest. And for the reason for their termination, you are most likely not able to get a waiver and then go on over to the Human Resource Department and find the exact reason why they were fired. There's so much confidentiality issues. Also, one way is, I don't want to say looking at a newspaper or looking online, Googling them is a way to go, because that information that is on there is a lot of times is inaccurate. It can lead you to a better direction, or it can lead you to asking more questions. But I don't think that looking at social media or even online is a definite way to go. Now, the law enforcement officers that I'm going to have issues with hiring are officers that are fired for dishonesty and officers that are fired for fraud or theft. If they're fired for fraud or theft, then that means there's a good chance that when they come to my security agency, they're going to engage in risky behavior that might endanger the clients. What I mean is they might end up taking stuff that's not theirs. If they live beyond their means, they might actually be racking up more overtime, maybe unnecessary overtime. They might be claiming hours that they never work. Now, I'm not saying this with everybody. I'm just saying that that's a possibility. Now, as for lying, you have to see what the so-called lie was about, and was it in fact a lie? The problem is that you're not able in most circumstances able to get a hold of the internal affairs document. This is privileged information that these departments probably won't give to you, anyways. So the only way to really find out is through references or to ask this person. It's very difficult to find out what the reason for termination. But I'll tell you this. I do know some officers that were terminated for dishonesty, and the dishonesty is ridiculous. So there's an officer, I think he's a subscriber to this channel, a very good officer. He was pulled over by a police department because this other police department thought that he was in a stolen vehicle. As a matter of fact, that officer that pulled him over said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but we have the wrong person." So that agency that pulled him over pulled him out at gunpoint and everything, but they had the wrong vehicle. So this officer did not report what happened to his agency, and as a result, he was terminated for dishonesty. Okay, so he basically admitted the fact that he was pulled over for a wrong reason. And this is how crazy it gets. And some of you might be thinking, well, that's what he told you. No, I have this information. I have information from a few sources that actually told me that this guy got a wrong deal or raw deal. A lot of these law enforcement agencies that are getting fired, they're getting terminated for ridiculous reasons. And it's really, I know that the majority of my viewers have not been in law enforcement. Maybe those of you who have been in security might understand, and I'm not trying to alienate anybody, but I'll tell you this. It's very difficult to explain if you have not been in the law enforcement culture. In the law enforcement culture, especially the smaller even the larger agencies like LAPD, if you give a bad impression to a commander or somebody that's in power, or that person in power does not like you for some reason, this person can bring hell to you for years. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, your whole entire career. This person can bring hell to you. And this can be a personality conflict, a personal conflict, and this officer is not able to resolve the situation until this higher up person retires. The way that these internal affairs investigations work is that sometimes the commander will tell the internal affairs investigator, hey, look at this, look at that, look into these issues. I'm going to authorize you overtime for doing this, and that. But what they're not doing out there, these commanders are doing is saying, hey, I want you to look for some type of exculpatory information or some type of information that shows that this officer was innocent. I don't see them doing that a lot of the times. So as a result, you get a biased internal affairs investigation. And then on top of that, the chief of police or the sheriff reviews the results that the internal affairs investigator presented, which was basically manipulated by a command staff member. I know a lot of law enforcement officers that got raw deals that are excellent people. They run excellent security companies. They run excellent private investigation companies as well. And I don't believe that they should be discounted from receiving assignments with your organization. Again, you have to look at the overall picture and ask other people who have been in law enforcement, hey, this person got fired for this. Is this legitimate? And let this law enforcement officer explain themselves, because I'm telling you, there's so many agencies out there that are arbitrary, and it's not just the little ones, it's the big ones, and they're all over the place. That's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. What I like about hiring law enforcement experienced officers is that a lot of times they have made all the mistakes that they possibly could with that organization. And when you get them, okay, they're that wise person that has learned from the mistakes of others because they were forced to learn from the mistakes of others because they made their own mistakes, which were costly mistakes. I'd rather have this guy that's been battle tested out there, or gal, battle tested, been through the ropes, than somebody that hasn't had that experience. You, as an employer, you have to get a feel for this person. Are they worth it, or are they not worth it? The training is overwhelming. I mean, most law enforcement agencies, you need between 5 and 8 months in the academy. That exceeds, in California, we need 40 hours of training the first year. And then every time after that, we got to do our, I think it's an 8-hour refresher course. But that's nothing close to the law enforcement standards. So you get highly trained people, you get experienced people as well. Same thing with a trainee. So you may have somebody a police officer who didn't make the field training officer phase. This person isn't worthless. This person is worth picking up, or even if they didn't pass probation. Look at the big picture, and I think that they're worth picking up because of all that training that they have. And a lot of that little experience that they picked up could amount to years of experience from somebody who has worked private security. Now, I'm not saying that in every single circumstance. I'm just speaking generally based on those private security officers that don't work in very busy posts. Just, you gotta check them out. The training and experience is gonna be worth it. But once again, if they have a history of stealing, look into that. I'd probably say no. Theft, I'd probably say no. As for dishonesty, you have to look at the dishonesty. For conduct unbecoming an officer, that's the broad category that commanders place on officers who they don't like. It's actually, the violation is unbecoming an officer, and that's open to interpretation, unfortunately. Anyhow, let me know what you guys' thoughts are. If you're a private security company owner, do you hire law enforcement? How do they work? If you don't hire law enforcement, would you in the future consider having a branch where it's law enforcement officers, so that you can hand tailor certain packages to certain picky clients? Let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Take care and be safe.